Hi friends, welcome back to Read Aloud. Today is day 6 of distance learning. So you should have in front of you a copy of the Berenstain Bears and the Big Spelling Bee. And you should have the sheet of paper that says Wednesday 325 Read Aloud the Berenstain Bears or the Berenstain Bears. When I was a kid, we called them the Berenstain Bears, but if you blend it, like you've been practicing with Miss Vargas, it would say Berenstain Bears. So, anyway, before we get started today, I just want to give a quick shout out to Sterling. Yesterday, he had his mom send me a text with a picture of him watching this Read Aloud video and doing the work that went along with it. So awesome work, Sterling. Keep it up. And if any of you also want a shout out at the beginning of the video, have your parents send your teachers a text or an email with a picture of you doing the work or your work in general, and you will get a shout out at the beginning of the videos. All right, let's get started. The Berenstain Bears and the Spelling Bee. Now, before we even start reading the book, I think we can answer the first question just from looking at the cover. The first question on your sheet says, what is the genre? So you're going to take about 20 seconds right now and write down what the genre of this story is. Go. So, on the cover, we have someone who looks like a teacher reading a list of words, and we see this other person over here who is looking very nervous and figuring out how those words are spelled. But I just realized I kept saying person, but these aren't people, these are bears. Now, I know that bears don't typically do this or ever do this. I've never seen a bear participate in a spelling bee before. And I also know that these bears are not real bears. The pictures are illustrations of bears. So just going off of that, I'm going to go ahead and say that the genre of this book is fiction. This is a fiction story. So let's dive in. The Berenstain Bears and the Big Spelling Bee. Let's go this way. Brother and sister Bear were pretty good students. Like most cubs, they had their strengths and weaknesses. Brother was good at math and science, but sometimes he had trouble with language arts. Sister, on the other hand, had trouble with math and science, but got straight A's in language arts. Language arts is like ELA, like what we do in ELA. Sister also read a lot and liked to write stories. Once, there were 3 chipmunks. Their names were Acorn, Peanut, and she couldn't think of the third one. She also happened to be a very good speller. Now, before we go on any further, we're going to pause right there and we can answer the next question. Who is the main character of this book? Take about 30 seconds now. Go. So looking at the last couple pages that we read, we've learned about Brother Bear and Sister Bear, but we've learned more information about Sister Bear. We know that she likes to read a lot and likes to write stories, and we also know that she is a good speller. And if we go back to the cover, we see on the title, this is going to be about a spelling bee. And spelling bees are when kids, or in this case bears, go up and in front of lots and lots of people and try to spell really, really hard words. So the main character of this story is Sister Bear. Let's keep reading. There are two ways to become a good speller. One is to study lists of words and memorize the way they are spelled. The other is to be a good reader and just let the words seep into your brain. Gwen, a classmate of Sister's, won the big school spelling bee last year. She was expected to win again. We're going to pause right there before we go any further, and you're going to answer the next question. What do we know about the main character so far? Now, we already read a lot about the main character while we were trying to figure out who the main character was. So take a minute and go back into the text and find out some things that we know about the main character. Take about 30 seconds. Go. Alright, so on the first few pages, we've learned that the main character is Sister Bear. We have also learned that she is great at language arts. That reminder, that means ELA. And she likes to read a lot, and she likes to write stories, and she is a very good speller. So those are all important facts to know about Sister Bear as we read this story. Let's keep going. But something surprising happened. First, there were class spelling bees, which led to the big school spelling bee. Now everybody stand at your seats, said Teacher Jane. I'll give out the words and you'll try to spell them. If you get a word right, you remain standing and wait for your next turn. If you spell it wrong, you sit down. The words were pretty hard, and soon everyone in the class except Gwen and Sister were sitting down. Sister couldn't believe she was now tied with Gwen, the best speller in the class. Treachery, said Teacher Jane, an act of betrayal. Treachery, said Gwen, Trechery. Treachery. That is incorrect, said Teacher Jane. Please sit down. Teacher Jane turned to Sister. She was the last one standing. Treachery, said Teacher Jane, an act of betrayal. Treachery, said Sister. Treachery. Treachery. That is correct, said Teacher Jane. You have won the warm-up round of the annual Bear County School Spelling Bee. Sister found herself being congratulated from all sides. I didn't know you were such a good speller, said Teacher Jane. Neither did I, said Sister. You know what this means, said Teacher Jane. It means you'll represent our class in the school spelling bee next Tuesday in the auditorium. And after that, next Tuesday, said Sister, but I have an important soccer practice next Tuesday. I'm just junior varsity, but we have to get the varsity ready for the big game. Teacher Jane just smiled. I wouldn't worry about that, she said. There will be a lot more soccer practices, but there's just one school spelling bee. So remember, as we were reading, not only do we need to think of the questions that are on the page that you're filling out now, but we also need to think about the character feelings throughout this text. So at the beginning, it looks like Sister Bear is feeling happy, and then when she wins the spelling bee, or not the spelling bee, she hasn't won the spelling bee, the warm-up round of the spelling bee, look at her face. She looks awfully surprised, but it's a good surprise, so she looks excited too. But now that she realized that she might miss her soccer practice, she doesn't look so excited anymore. Let's keep reading. It's fun to win, thought Sister, but I sure hate missing that practice. Sister was heading for the playground. She had a date to jump rope with Lizzie and Jill. They met at the playground gate. Congratulations, said Lizzie. For what? Asked Sister. For winning your class spelling bee, of course. How did you hear about it so soon? Asked Sister. Good news travels fast, said Lizzie. I'm not so sure it's good news, said Sister. The school spelling bee is on Tuesday, so I'm going to miss an important soccer practice. There will be a lot more soccer practices, said Jill, but there's only one. I know, said Sister. There's only one school spelling bee. By the time Sister got home, the whole family knew she had won the spelling bee. Papa was especially excited about it. Congratulations, Sister, said Papa. Way to go! It takes me back to when I was the best speller in the school. I used to knock over those spelling bees like 10-pins. I guess you realize that if you win the spelling bee, you'll go to the big all-school spelling bee in Big Bear City. But Sister hadn't realized it. Now here's what we're going to do, said Papa. So Sister's not looking so excited anymore. She doesn't look as excited as Papa does to be practicing these spelling words. So we're going to pause right there, and we're going to answer the next question. What is the setting of the story? Take about 30 seconds. What is the setting of the story? Go! Alright, so the setting, we know that the story has been taking place in a couple of places. So at the beginning of the story, Sister Bear is at her school. So that's one part of the setting. But then she just got home. That's another part of the setting. So when there are a couple different places for the setting, but they are all in or around the main character's house or wherever they live, that means that the setting is Sister's neighborhood. So the setting of this story is Sister's neighborhood. Let's keep reading. Mama sidled over to Papa and in a low voice said, Dear, could I speak to you for a moment? She took him by the arm and led him into the dining room. Now, Papa, said Mama, I know you're proud of Sister. I am too. But you mustn't get carried away and put too much pressure on her. Me? Carried away? Ridiculous, protested Papa. Besides, Sister can handle pressure. She's tough as a nut. She takes after me. Then Papa went back into the living room. Oh dear, said Mama. Now, Sister, said Papa, here's what we're going to do. First, I'm going up to the attic and get my old vocabulary list from school. Then we're going to drill, drill, drill until you're letter perfect in every word. Papa headed up to the attic. The list took some finding, but Papa found them. Meanwhile, downstairs there was a knock on the door. Sister answered it. It was Lizzie and Jill. Can you come over and play after supper? "Afraid not, girls," said Papa, who had come down from the attic with his vocabulary lists. "Sister and I are going to be busy preparing for the school spelling bee. The way I see it, we've got a good chance of going to the all-school spelling bee in Big Bear City." So we're going to pause here, and you're going to answer the next question on your sheet. What is the problem of the story? Take about 45 seconds. Go. All right, so we got to figure out the problem of the story. So we know that Sister Bear was excited about winning the warm-up round of the spelling bee until she realized that she would have to miss a soccer practice. And we also know that she was excited or happy to be studying with Papa until she realized that she would be missing out on time hanging out with her friends. So the problem of the story is that Sister wants to do well in the spelling bee, but she also wants to spend time doing the things that she likes to do and hanging out with her friends. All right, friends, we've been reading for a while. I think it's time for a little dance break. So the way that Sister is feeling right now is conflicted. Because she wants to do well in the spelling bee, but she also wants to have time to hang out with her friends and go to her soccer practice. So Sister is feeling conflicted right now. Let's keep reading. Let's see. Papa was as good as his word. Every evening after school, Papa drilled Sister on vocabulary words. "Destitute," said Papa, "without money or property." "Destitute," said Sister. "Destitute." "Paramount," said Papa, "the uppermost or highest." "Paramount," said Sister. "Paramount." "Prehistoric," said Papa, "of the period before recorded history." "Prehistoric," said Sister. Prehistoric. Those are some big words. It was Tuesday, and the spelling bee was underway. The contestants were up on the stage. There were 7 of them. The auditorium was filled with cubs and parents. Papa was there, of course. He was rooting for Sister like crazy. Mr. Honeycomb, the school principal, was giving out the words. The words were like rockets going off and exploding into bad spelling that knocked out the contestants one by one. Tragedy, disaster, impossible, ridiculous, ludicrous. So these words are all spelled incorrectly. It was down to two cubs, sister and a fifth grader. Vicarious, said Mr. Honeycomb, taking undue pleasure from the achievements of others. Vicarious, said the fifth grader. Vicarious. Vicarious. That is incorrect, said Mr. Honeycomb. He turned to sister, who was the last cub standing. Vicarious, thought Papa out in the audience, taking undue pleasure from the achievements of others. Good grief, that's exactly what I'm doing. So what Papa's realizing right now is that he might be getting more enjoyment out of the spelling bee than sister is. Vicarious, said Mr. Honeycomb, taking undue pleasure from the achievements of others. Vicarious, said sister. Vicarious. Vicarious. Correct, cried Mr. Honeycomb, which means that Sister Bear will be going to the all-school spelling bee in Big Bear City. Sister got a standing ovation, except for Papa, who remained seated. How about a little victory snack at the Burger Bear, said Mama as they left the school. Fine, said Papa. Sure thing, said Brother. Sister didn't say anything. She was lost in thought. Look at her. She doesn't look too excited about winning this round of the spelling bee. You would think that she would be excited. Papa, she said, I don't know how to say this, and I don't want to disappoint you, but I don't want to go to the all-school spelling bee in Big Bear City. I just want to go to school, play soccer, and do things with my friends. Disappoint me, said Papa. You could never disappoint me. In fact, I'm very proud of you for having the courage to stand up for yourself. Tell you what, why don't you just take off and play with your friends? Oh, may I? I love you, Papa. And she was gone. How about me? Asked Brother. Cousin Fred's got a game going over at the ball field. Take off, said Papa. Papa turned to Mama. Do you still want to go for a snack? He asked. I don't think so, said Mama. Let's just go home and have a cup of tea. And that's what they did. So, now that we've finished the story, we can answer the last two questions. The first question you're going to answer is, what is the solution? Then you're going to answer the question, what is the lesson learned? I will put each question up individually so you'll know how much time you have for each question. Go! So we know that the problem of the story is that Sister Bear wanted to do well in the spelling bee, but she also wanted to have time to play with her friends and go to her soccer practice. And she probably wanted to do well in the spelling bee because her papa was so excited about it. So the solution is that Sister Bear was finally honest about how she felt. She was honest about how she felt about the spelling bee, that she didn't really want to do the spelling bee anymore because she wanted to play with her friends. So when Sister Bear was honest about how she felt about the spelling bee, Papa Bear was supportive of her decision to not do the spelling bee anymore. So the solution of the story is that Sister Bear was honest about her feelings. And the solution of the story actually ties into the lesson learned. So the lesson learned is that you should always be honest about your feelings. That way you don't get wrapped up into something that you don't necessarily want to do. All right, so now that you've answered all of those questions, let's look at the exit ticket. Your exit ticket today is asking you how Sister Bear's feelings changed from the beginning of the story to the end of the story. So you're going to write about Sister Bear's feelings in the beginning, in the middle, and at the end of the story. So you're writing about 3 different feelings. You're going to write your evidence, how you know that Sister Bear is feeling that way, as well as what caused those feelings. So let's look back through the story really quick, and then I'll put a chart at the end of the video so that you guys can use it to write your exit ticket. So we know that at the beginning of the story, Sister Bear was surprised and excited about winning her class's round of the spelling bee. She is standing up straight and tall, she's got her mouth open, and she's smiling. Then, she starts feeling a little conflicted. She doesn't want to miss her soccer practice, and she still wants to hang out with her friends, but she also wants to do well in the spelling bee. So this right here, she's looking away from Papa, who's really excited, and her shoulders are kind of down a little bit. That shows that she's feeling conflicted about the spelling bee and whether she wants to participate or not. And she's still feeling conflicted when her friends come to ask her to play, and Papa says that she can't because she needs to practice spelling her words. Then, at the end, she finally tells Papa how she feels about the spelling bee. She says, "I don't want to disappoint you, but I don't want to do the big spelling bee." And when she says that, the problem is solved because Papa respects her feelings and her decision not to do the spelling bee anymore. So, I'm going to put up a chart at the end of this video so that you guys can use it to help answer your exit ticket. Remember, if you want a shout out in the next video, just like Sterling had one in this video, make sure that you ask your parents to text your teacher a picture of you doing your work, or just a picture of your work in general so that we can see the great work you've been doing. All right, friends, enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you tomorrow.